Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, well, I guess everyone's muted, so. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the American College of Vedic Astrology. We welcome you to another beautiful monthly webinar. It's going to be fantastic today. So before we get started, I'd like you to check to ensure that your microphone is on mute during our presentation, because that background noise can really have an impact on people all over the world. They won't be able to hear the speaker. Feel free to submit your questions in the chat forum during the session, and then we'll go to those after the presentation, and Karina will answer those questions when she's completed her lecture. Also, please remember to keep your cell phones away from your computer, because it can actually cause static interference and echoing on the line. So with that said, I welcome you all once again, and I'll turn this over to Karina. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela. Welcome to all of you. Just a few words about myself. I'm a Jyotish leadership coach, author, Ayurvedic counselor, and a lifelong student of the Vedic sciences. My goal is to help my clients develop self-leadership so that they can lead themselves first and masterfully and live according to their highest truth. I am an ACVA certified level 1 and level 2 from the certification program by ACVA, a certified ACVA Jyotish Online Instructor, and I also serve in the ACVA Steering Committee. I hold a doctoral degree in organizational leadership and a master's degree in adult education. I have over 20 years of experience in management consulting in Southeast Asia, in the United States, and in Brazil, having worked for mainstream multinational organizations, including the Big Four consulting firms. I have authored the book Intuition in Decision Making for the banking industry. I've also co-authored the book The Laws of Communication. In addition to all of this, I volunteer at the Albert Einstein Israel Life Hospital and at the Self-Realization Fellowship in various capacities. I currently live in São Paulo, Brazil. Thank you for joining us today. This webinar is hosted by the American College of Vedic Astrology, a worldwide leader in Vedic education. For more information on academic programs, symposia, and class dates, please visit the ACVA website at www.acva.org. I've already read a few details of my bio and expertise. I'd just like to add that I can be reached through my email, karinaweil108@gmail.com. The topic of today's webinar is titled Shani Mahagraha, the light within the darkness. Shani is the Vedic name for Saturn. Today's webinar will be uploaded to the ACVA YouTube channel for future viewing. The link is available on the ACVA homepage, www.acvaonline.org. There will be an opportunity also for attendees to submit questions at today's webinar via the chat option. Due to limitations of time, it will not be possible to address individual chart questions. At this time, I would like to invite you to please join me in chanting the mantra to Lord Ganesha, patron of the arts and sciences. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. I'd also like to invite you to join me in chanting the mantra to Shani Dev. Om Sham Shanascharaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The main objective of this presentation is to gain an understanding and appreciation of the immeasurable power of Shani's influence in our personal lives, spiritual development, and in awakening our inner guiding light. Within this scope, we have 4 learning objectives. 1. To explore how Shani manifests its intelligent force, 2. To show Shani's role in our spiritual development. 3. To study Shani as the key in rekindling our inner light. And 4. To examine Shani in the astrological houses. This last objective is the sum total, the takeaway that will emerge from this webinar. Shani is a colossal planet that few appreciate. He is blamed for everything that is negative and destructive. He is associated with suffering, pain, and limitation, but mostly because of our limitations of awareness and perception. So let's make sure first we understand the forces that underscore the essence of this powerful planet. Astronauts from NASA say that Shani or Saturn's rings are beautiful and perfectly ordered. Being the only planet with rings, Shani is so unique and complex that it is considered the jewel in our solar system. Of the visible planets, Shani is the most distant from the Earth, and his distance from the Sun is nearly 10 times that of the Earth. Because Shani is positioned furthest from the warmth and light of the Sun, he is associated with coldness and darkness. Astrologically, he is also known as a malefic, with a ring symbolizing limitation and constriction. However, we tend to call dark and malevolent that which lies beyond our understanding. In this sense, Shani is greatly misunderstood. The wisdom of Vedic astrology teaches that all planets are endowed with an intrinsic intelligence and a noble purpose. Shani is an intelligent force to be reckoned with. It is intertwined in everything we do, but we often overlook it and fail to fully appreciate it. So let's address our first learning objective, how Shani manifests its intelligent force in our lives. Shani's presence pervades our entire existence by manifesting the order and the structure that shape and provide stability to our physical, social, and spiritual lives. For example, the symmetry in nature as the precision in the pattern of a honeycomb, the core regions of planet Earth, which play a role in the Earth's structure. These are Shani's domain. In the social environment, Shani is associated with the judicial system and the legal parameters that sustain governments. In the physical body, Shani represents the skeleton that holds our muscles together, providing structural support to the heart, lungs, and marrow, as well as protection for the internal organs. In the higher vibrational sphere of the mind, Shani's power and purpose is to help materialize our creative thoughts. Without Shani's energies of focus and exacting perfectionism, no works of art could be created. Shani is also considered a spiritual teacher. With his extraordinary powers of orderly manifestation, Shani brings into form our karma, teaching us that karma is the repercussion of our choices. As our karmic teacher, Shani is associated with limitation and discipline. But on the positive side, these are the tools which help us develop discrimination and willpower. Shani teaches us through obstacles that bring order and structure into our lives when there is chaos, when we lack purpose and meaning, and whenever we experience a setback at work, in our health, or in our personal life. It is Shani's constrictive energy inciting us to take time to better understand and deal with our present challenges. Such experiences remind us that time is our most precious resource, and Shani is the personification of time. Shani as ruler of time. Throughout antiquity, Shani has always been worshipped as the ruler of time. Shani manifests his intelligent force of time through transits and planetary periods or dashas. These take charge of our life for the longest period of time because we need the gift of time to create something of value, to develop our inner faculties. We need the gift of time to develop awareness, and we need the gift of time to gain wisdom and serenity. That is why the word Shani in Sanskrit comes from another word, Shanischara, which means slow mover. During his transits periods, Shani's energies slow down our experiences in order to teach us to pay attention to what is important. As a result, we become aware and accountable for using time wisely and strategically. Through time, we learn the importance of recommitting ourselves to our responsibilities and pledges. In the time span of our life, we go through turning points and evolutionary stages. Astrologically, Shani is the great catalyst that schedules these important turning points. They are called Saturn return and Sadhisati. The Saturn return happens when Saturn returns to the same sign and degree that he occupies at the moment of our birth. It happens first during our late 20s and early 30s, then again in our late 50s and early 60s, and sometimes in our late 80s. Sadhisati corresponds to a 7.5-year transit that Shani makes across the moon. He spends 2.5 years moving through the constellation before the moon, then 2.5 years crossing the constellation where the moon is in one's birth chart, and lastly, 2.5 years passing through the constellation after the moon. During Saturn return and Sadhisati, we invariably feel some form of mental and emotional strain as we reflect on past mistakes and the current results of our actions. From a spiritual perspective, both Sadhisati and Saturn return usher in karmic periods that can lead to transformational leaps in maturity and awareness so that we can steer our lives in a direction that is in greater harmony with our highest good and our inner truth. But discovering our inner truth is like walking in the darkest of nights. It is Shani's job to help us accomplish that by showing us the truth. Shani as the ruler of truth. In India, Shani is called Satgraha, the planet of truth. This is because he turns the spotlight of his fierce glance on our delusions, revealing the stark realities of life. One of the most difficult realities for us to accept is that there are karmic consequences to our thoughts and actions. Shani reveals in a tangible way that our own past deeds and our past thoughts are the root cause of our present joys and sorrows. Shani shows the truth about our attitudes and our resistance toward hardships in order to teach us what stage of awareness we're at. He does the unenviable and ungrateful task of patiently showing us the truth about ourselves for our highest good while receiving the worst reputation. We live in an instant satisfaction society that conditions us to the notion that we have to be wildly happy and fulfilled all the time. Shani's restrictions shatter our illusions, showing that these expectations are unrealistic and that life is not trouble-free. By showing us the truth, Shani takes us from gullibility to maturity and from oblivion to the keenest wisdom. Think about it. Our learning curve is oftentimes steeper when we experience sorrow and disillusionment than when we are having fun and pleasure, because sorrow teaches us to count our blessings and to value joyous moments. Shani's constrictive energy tests our capacity for patience and endurance to overcome that which we ourselves have created. Above all, He is the greatest bearer of the eternal truth that it is by embracing the tough times that we awaken the soul potential of the hero within us. And it is then that our true growth begins. This takes us to our second learning objective, to show Shani's role in our spiritual development. As spiritual seekers, we all need a strong code of discipline in order to develop our consciousness. As the karaka or significator of discipline, structure, ethics, and rigor, Shani embodies the moral and spiritual principles that help us build our life and our fate on a solid foundation. All self-developmental practices, paths, fall under Shani's disciplinarian influence. For example, in Vedic astrology, Shani and Shiva are closely associated through the spiritual path of yoga and meditation. One other example is the Yama and Niyama code for right conduct and self-discipline set forth in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Yama and Niyama reflect Shani's qualities of self-restraint necessary for soul development. An equally fascinating example of Shani's association with spiritual discipline can be found in the Mithric mysteries of ancient Rome. The Mithric mysteries, or Mithraism, were a highly secret cult that existed in the Roman Empire. The word Mithraism comes from Mithra, the divinity of contracts, justice, and the all-seeing protector of truth. Mithra, along with Saturn, were considered part of a divine hierarchy. The spirit of Saturn, as it was referred to in Roman times, played a key role in the Mithric sacred initiation rituals. They described spiritual evolution as a 7-step ladder to heaven. The first step governed the basic disciplines and austerities that take us from a lower consciousness upward, or heavenward. This first step was called the sky of Saturn. We can conclude that since time immemorial, Shani has been regarded as the gatekeeper of the very foundation to our spiritual efforts, without which we would not be able to grow spiritually. This takes us to our third learning objective, to study Shani as the key in rekindling our inner light. When we face Shani's trials, darkness seems to envelop us. We seem to be blind to the path before us, and therefore find it difficult to make the right decisions. But stop and think. Darkness can't exist without light. They are complementary in the interplay of the duality of our existence. Our higher purpose in life is to remember the presence of an inner guiding light that exists in our heart and that can offer tremendous wisdom and steer us in the right direction. It is Shani's compassionate job to help us see the light within ourselves, even when we are surrounded by the darkness of ignorance, attachment, and suffering. This light represents our soul qualities of wisdom, our higher truths. They are the inner compass that helps us navigate through the dark and uncertain seas of life. We would never become aware of our soul qualities and strength if we did not have difficulties to overcome. But the struggles and trials that Shani symbolizes are not punishments. Instead, they are equations that require solutions. Finding them represents the opportunity to recreate our challenges into a more harmonious plan in order to achieve the highest possible outcome. There are too many forces collaborating against us knowing our true selves. Restlessness of mind and body, desires, distractions of all kinds. Obstacles and tests are Shani's unique gifts that teach us to stop, to go inward, to listen quietly to a beautiful inner voice that wants to raise our consciousness to a higher, more purified, and awakened state. This is Shani's highest purpose in our lives. It is undeniable that Shani is a severe teacher, but he is as just and exact when dispensing his discipline as he is when granting results for our good deeds. For this reason, the lasting effects of his blessings are irrevocable. An inspiring example of a great one who turned Shani's obstacles in his favor is Paramahamsa Yogananda. This great master had Shani in his second house. During his life, he suffered several financial setbacks, which he undauntedly overcame and went on to leave a legacy for his disciples worldwide. By connecting to the force of his inner light, Yogananda used the obstacles he encountered as raw material to weave the fabric of his inner strength and catapult him to greater heights. We can achieve similar levels of success if we are willing to see the opportunities for liberation behind Shani's tests. An examination of Shani in the birth chart can provide an indication of these opportunities in disguise. So now let's explore our fourth learning objective, Shani in the astrological houses. We have seen that Shani is part of Shiva's spiritual army. So the house in our chart in which Shani falls is where he goes to war against our imperfections and prods us to release our inner wisdom and fortitude to destroy the darkness of what is unreal and transitory. For this reason, that is the area of our life where we experience fear and limitation. Shani gives stress not to limit us, but to force us to stir up our latent powers and connect to the inner light of wisdom and truth. We can think of Shani's lessons as an assignment that our soul is challenged to carry out and emerge victorious. In that house, Shani oversees our progress and, although not in a subtle way, ensures that we have those exact experiences that will help raise our consciousness to a higher plane of living and harness our inner strength. Shani invites introspection and deep thinking. So may I suggest we look at each of the 12 houses questioningly in order to help us appraise the special qualities that this planet inspires us to develop. Due to time constraints, we will not examine all the significations of the astrological houses. So let's begin with Shani in the first house of personal identity and ego. The questions we might ask ourselves is, how does the fear of expressing my true, authentic self prevent me from developing personal strength, self-sufficiency, and maturity? Shani in the second house of wealth and resources. How does my fear of lack constrain the use of my personal resources, such as money, attributes, and most importantly, time? Shani in the third house of communication and initiative. How does my fear of reaching out and being proactive create scarcity? Shani in the fourth house of mother, family, and emotional well-being. How do responsibilities for family matters restrict my ability to develop a strong inner core of happiness and peace? Shani in the fifth house of creativity and intelligent risk-taking. How do rigid mental patterns hinder my creative intelligence and ability to take risks? Shani in the sixth house of adversity and health. How does my fear of adversity and disease restrict my potential for growth? Shani in the seventh house of partnerships and marriage. How does my resistance to compromise and achieve balance in my relationships obstruct my ability to create fulfilling relationships? Shani in the eighth house of transformation and death. How does my resistance for change and transformation reflect my fear of death? Shani in the 9th house of philosophy and higher learning. How do my old belief systems reflect my fear of opening up to higher truths? Shani in the 10th house of power and public image. How does my fear of exercising personal power and being in the public view limit my personal growth? Shani in the 11th house of achievement and fulfillment. How does my fear of fulfilling my desires limit my ability to achieve? And Shani in the 12th house of spirituality and seclusion. How does my fear of being in seclusion hinder my ability to develop spiritual awareness? By looking at Shani's placement on the astrological houses, we see that there is a stern but loving purpose behind Shani's powerful lessons. The greatest teaching is that if we persevere and endure through the temporary darkness and difficulties of Shani's trials, not only do we survive, but also nothing that happens can put out the great power of our inner light. This is the light of our own being, which is a real, active, and conscious energy of eternal renewal. Once we realize that this is ours to have and it is within our grasp, we can evolve from fear to respect and to gratitude towards splendid and masterful Shani. I'd like us now to take a moment and review what we have covered during this webinar. We have explored the myriad ways in which Shani manifests its intelligent force in the various spheres of our lives by giving structure and focus to our existence. We have sought to gain a more thorough understanding of Shani's importance to our sadhana and spiritual development through his connection to timeless spiritual traditions. We have contemplated how Shani contributes to our rekindling and attuning to our inner light. And finally, we have examined Shani's placement in the 12 astrological houses and their significance. This concludes our presentation. For those interested in doing some further reading, listed below are the references used in this research. I want to extend to each one of you my heartfelt gratitude for your participation and attention, and to ACVA for having hosted this event and for giving me the opportunity to offer my views. I believe at this point we are able to address any questions that there may be, which I will do so in the best way I can by way of the chat bar.
Hey, Karina, thank you so much. Incredible presentation on Shani. I really enjoyed it. I know everyone here did. And there may be questions. If you have them, please feel free to type them into the question bar. You covered everything so thoroughly. I think I'll be surprised if there's questions.
Thank you, Angela.
So you're welcome. We'll give people a moment to type in and.
All right.
Okay. Okay, we will not be taking any questions about specific charts, about your charts, because we just don't have time today, folks.
I wonder if
we have a question here. Does Shani signify death more than Jupiter?
Oh, I'm not sure if Jupiter is connected to death. Could you please elaborate and clarify?
Okay, so while she's doing that, we'll go on to the next question. Is there a way to view the slides again? Yeah, Susan, we're going to be uploading everything. We're in the process of getting some stuff caught up and getting everything uploaded. Watch our e-news for details on that. It will be coming soon. Oh, we got a message from Charlotte. This was so beautiful and well organized. I am quite inspired to become more like Lord Shani. Me too, Charlotte. Thank you for saying that. Karina did a fantastic job. Oh, Karina, we have a question from William. Could you say a little bit about Shani's ongoing influence in Scorpio?
Oh, yes, that's an excellent question, and I was hoping somebody would ask that. This current transit of Saturn in Scorpio is rather unique, and the uniqueness of this transit is mainly due to, I believe, two factors. The first one is that Mars is also conjuncting Saturn. It's just been added into the equation, into the mix, forming a very challenging and provocative yoga called Agni Marutha Yoga, which, among other things, can lead to some paradoxical behavior. For example, sometimes a person may act in a very controlled way, but at other times in a very impulsive and downright angry or resentful. This is due to the opposing natures of these two planets. Mars, for example, represents our urge to fight, to pursue our desires, to assert ourselves, to conquer, whereas the energies of Shani frustrates, curbs, restricts, and invite reflection on any sudden and strong or unreflective urge or impulse to act. Shani is, as we saw, is the austere and omniscient teacher that makes sure we question our motivations, our driving forces. The second factor is because both are in the transformational sign of Scorpio. So the indications for purification and resolution of any deep-seated issues are very strong now, because if you think of Saturn as a purifying force and Scorpio also as a purifying force, when both are combined, you have a very powerful energy of transformation, of cleansing, of elimination, of purification, affecting every chart, actually. The other thing I'd like to say about this transit in the light of Mars presence is that Mars and Saturn, or Shani, are really not very good friends. And whenever there is a planetary conflict of any kind, there's also the implicit need for cooperation or negotiation of merging of the two planetary energies. So if we strive to manifest, for example, and combine Saturn in the capacity that Saturn in Scorpio offers to strategize, to plan ahead, to eliminate, to purify, with Mars in Scorpio's ability to act with timing, with confidence, we stand a greater chance of navigating this period more effectively. There is also a third significant factor that makes this transit unforgettable. The fact that both Saturn and Mars are now getting very close to one another, and very soon we'll be engaging in a retrograding dance, planetary dance, so to speak. And it's retrograding, but it's also syncopated, because there is the energy of initiative and of going forward, symbolized by Mars, while at the same time there is the vibrational energy of pulling back, rethinking, reflecting, that is so typical of Saturn. So this syncopated dance is almost like a tango in which one pulls incisively and the other resists. So reflection, meditation, going within, rethinking, reformulating, getting rid of everything that has already fulfilled its purpose, its mission, is in order right now. By doing that, if we're capable of remembering that, being aware of that at all times, we will stand a higher chance of not incurring in negative actions that can sow the seeds of potentially unholy or difficult future karma. It's definitely a very extremely challenging transit combination right now. Thank you for asking. Does that answer your question? Does that meet what you had in mind?
Well, we'll see what he says in a later text, but it was very deep, and I learned a lot from it. So I'm sure we all did.
Well, the most important, I'm sorry, I just wanted to add one observation regarding the current transit, because I believe most people are really concerned with what's going on in the sky at the moment. The most important aspect or thought to have in mind is that the events occurring right now are not as important. I know that that's very easy to say, but they are important mostly because they lead each one of us to some kind of a potential psychological reorientation vis-a-vis the house in the chart where Shani is natally placed. So that will be the focus.
Okay, we ready to go on to the next question? Okay, so Karina, so you mentioned earlier that we didn't really have time to go into the details of the houses, but we do have a question. Someone's asking if you could elaborate the pros and cons of Shani in the second house, and well, he's also asking for remedies, but maybe if you could just talk about the pros and cons of the second house a little bit more.
A little bit. Yes, definitely. Sure can. The second house is mainly associated with personal resources, money, possessions, the way, but also values that are inherited from our ancestors, from our family, from our parents. So these values determine how we deal with our resources and how important they are to us. So when Saturn is natally placed in the second house, there are definitely lessons to be learned, to be integrated into the person's consciousness regarding the use of material resources and regarding the person's scale of values. It obviously depends on what Rashi or sign Shani is in, and if the person is interested in further analysis, please feel free to contact me through my email, I'll be delighted to go into greater depth and even to talk about some possible remedies for any difficulties that the person may be experiencing or may have experienced regarding this person. Is that satisfactory?
Sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you've got your info. Do you have, oh yeah, maybe you could put your contact information back up on the screen, Karina?
Back up. I'll do that. Mm-hmm.
We have some more questions here. The next question is how to
Thank you for waiting, Angela.
No problem. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Karina's information is up on the screen. You can contact her through her email. And we've got a few more questions here. One is how to transcend Shani to liberation from this earthly life of restrictions.
Remember that Shani is part of Shiva's spiritual army. So he values ethical behavior, seriousness of intent, commitment to one's pledge and responsibility, an oath. The best, once a great astrologer friend of mine said something that's, I think it's very appropriate and to in answering this question. He said that the best puja one can do, the best purification ceremony one can do for Shani is to behave in a way that you, towards others and towards life, in a way that you would love to be treated. And that basically boils down to the second commandment. I mean, I'm not preaching religion here, but Shani is very clear, mathematically clear, on what he expects from us. He expects a behavior that is based on the eternal truths of seriousness, of honesty, hard work, simplicity. He also values humility. By adopting these behaviors, we can rest assured that we will be planting seeds from very auspicious karma now and in the future. Obviously, putting out that in a nutshell.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another question. Bettina wants to know, how do we view Saturn's retrograde motion?
Technically, Vedic astrology states that Saturn, all retrograde motions of malefics tend to increase and compound its effect. The reason for that in practical life is to force the attention, or the consciousness, to focus on what is on one's plate, what is just right in front of the person. It's very easy. Our minds are very volatile, so it's very easy to get distracted by our thoughts, by our desires, and by external influences and stimuli. Saturn asks us to go within, block all that, stop, and proceed cautiously, paying very close attention to what motivates you, and behaving with the utmost integrity towards your consciousness, towards your conscience, towards others, towards life. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Karina. Let's see here. Does the Nava Gras puja help in getting blessings from Shani?
Oh, that's thank you for asking this question. There are differing views regarding yagyas. I think the most qualified person to answer this question would be a native Indian or Hindu, which I'm not. I'm neither. So some believe it can pacify the effects of a malefic planet. Others believe that the effects are mild or negligible. So I really can't comment on the strength and effectiveness of such ceremonies because I don't have any experience with them. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's see here. I think we've got time for one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's one more question here, and we're not answering specific chart questions, but this is sort of, I think this is important maybe to address.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the question is, can you address if these transits are happening through your ascendant?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Could you please rephrase it?
I think that what she's referring to is we talked a little bit about Saturn and Mars transiting in the same house, and she's wanting to know when that moves through the first house, maybe how that affects us, maybe our consciousness, or maybe she's, you know, Susan, maybe you could type out if you're interested to learn more about that through a state of consciousness, or if you're looking more towards what's going to happen in our life. If we talk about it maybe from a state of consciousness, it'll be easier. If it's directly through the ascendant and how it's going to affect your life, it's probably better to book an appointment for that.
Absolutely, because there are so many factors that come into play that need to be considered when in analyzing Shani's and Mars, for that matter, potential effects on a specific house. I would have to look at house rulership, if there are any planets in that first house, and major planetary periods that may be going on as well and may be more prevailing over this 2.5-year transit of Saturn. So I would be doing you a disservice by giving you a summarized answer right now. Too many factors have to be taken into light, into consideration. Unless, of course, you can elaborate a little bit more on this, on your question, or do we have time? Or?
Actually, we're running out of time. There's the questions just keep rolling in. And we unfortunately don't have enough time to cover them all. But maybe maybe if people are interested, why don't you shoot an email over to registrar@acvaonline.org and let me know if you're interested in a larger class on this. Maybe I can talk Karina into offering a bigger class on Saturn, because we do have a lot of questions here, and she's got great information to offer. Feel free to send an email over to ACVA if you'd like to see a larger class on that. And also, so Karina, thank you so much. Incredible presentation. And I'd also like to remind people before we end the session that we've got classes starting at ACVA on the first Wednesday of every month. Next month, we've got Bill Sinclair coming in to talk about Surya. And in May, we've got Ronnie Gil-Dreyer. She's going to be specifically talking about the Mars retrograde that's upcoming. So watch the ACVA e-news. If you're not already signed up, please do. We'd like to thank everyone for coming today, and we wish you peace. Thanks, everybody.
Peace. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.